For years before this pandemic hit, economists credited much of Canada's GDP growth to the real estate sector and specifically home building. New home starts in Ottawa, much like residential home prices, seem to grow at a slow and steady pace, rising from about 6,000 units in 2009 to 7,800 units in 2019. All of this means billions of dollars of economic activity and tens of thousands of jobs. How will home building be affected by COVID-19? Stay tuned for that discussion. This episode of Coping with COVID-19 podcast is brought to you by Bright Sky, an Ottawa-based company offering the ultimate in cloud and cybersecurity for Canadian businesses. To check them out, please visit brightsky.ca. You can also visit the Ottawa Business Journal YouTube channel to watch a bonus episode of Coping with COVID dedicated to cybersecurity. Hello and welcome to Ottawa Business Journal's continuing coverage of COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Michael Kern from the Ottawa Business Journal. In this episode of Coping with COVID-19, we turn our attention to a business sector that is very close to home. In fact, they build the homes we live in. Today, we focus on new home construction. Here are a few stats as we begin. 7,539 housing starts in 2019, 47,000 jobs in new home construction and renovation, 2.9 billion in wages, and 5.9 billion in total build investment in 2019. We've got three guests today that represent very different parts of the home building sector. Let me introduce them now. Our first guest is the co-owner of a custom home building business called Maple Leaf Custom Homes. They're a design build company that does some multi-unit projects as well. Please welcome Fred Carmesino. Hello, Fred.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Our second guest leads a long-standing Ottawa builder. Their work ranges from single-family homes to large high-rise condos. In fact, right now, they're working on to finish one of the highest ever condo towers in Ottawa, Icon. Please welcome Neil Malhotra. Hello, Neil.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And our third guest has spent more than 20 years at one of Ottawa's best-known builders, Minto. He's just coming up to his 2-year anniversary as president of Minto Communities. Please welcome Brent Strachan. Hello, Brent.
Good morning, Michael.
So, Brent, let's start off with you. It seems funny asking a big company like Minto to tell me a bit about your company, but I'll do so anyways. I'm pretty sure people are familiar with Minto, but give me a sense of Minto's history, the number of builds per year, employees, the type of home building you're doing, anything like that.
Sure. Well, actually, we just passed our 65th anniversary last week of building homes, and we're based here in Ottawa, and of course, all different types of build forms from townhomes to singles to high-rise rental communities, mixed-use communities, commercial, office, you name it in Ottawa. So we have quite a few employees here in Ottawa, but also expanded across Canada and also down into the southern states as well. So typically in Ottawa, we'd be between 800 to 1,200 units or homes a year. And this year we'll be around probably 900 homes.
Okay, I'm anxious to dig into that, Brent. So just a quick follow-up then. So if we were to look back over the past 2 months, Brent, when COVID-19 obviously hit, give me a sense of how your operations at Minto have been impacted in terms of delays or layoffs, anything like that.
So going back to February, obviously this was something that was on everybody's radar, and our first concern was going to be as far as supply chain and delays associated with that. But quickly in March, things changed quite rapidly, and of course, as of we call it Friday the 13th in March, when the pandemic was declared, everything changed drastically. I think for us and probably a lot of builders, the virtual world took over. Whether it's through selling virtually or working virtually, such as this, remotely. Construction, of course, was deemed an essential service, so construction kept going, albeit at a much slower pace in Ottawa as everyone tried to adjust and put safety protocols in place to ensure safety of all of their workers and trades. But what we did see on the sales side was that there's still demand in the Ottawa market for new homes and condos. Of course, before this, most builders were having lineups for releases because the demand was so high. This changed things so that no longer were people lining up, but it was registering online virtually and then having the ability for a sales rep to call them and to have a go-to meeting or a conversation to talk about what's available, what the pricing is, take advantage of low interest rates, etc. So it really changed essentially how we operate. And honestly, moving forward, I think a lot of things are going to be permanent from a virtual perspective, or in addition to what was the norm coming into COVID.
Okay, Neil, let's come to you at Claridge, again, a company that's obviously very well known across Ottawa, goes back decades and decades. But give us a sense of what Claridge is up to these days, and then we'll dig into COVID-19 a bit.
Sure. So similar to Minto, Claridge, we're involved in subdivision, single-family homes, condominiums. We're in the process of doing a large build of rental purpose apartments. We're involved in seniors housing. We're involved in all sorts of elements of the housing market in Ottawa. We currently, employ about 1,000 people, and we're producing 500 to 700 units a year in these various forms, sometimes upwards of 1,000. And similar to Minto, the challenges we face the same challenges. How you become virtual, essentially in most of your dealings, and that's still an ongoing process, and the impacts are still really being sorted out. I mean, every week you have to review, where are we? Are we pushing the boundaries of our efficiency? Are we able to start moving towards, a better level of production in the houses, and how we move things forward? But ultimately, one of the most important things that we sort of plan around right now is, how do you make sure your employee base feels safe, right? And making sure you take the steps. It's not enough to just do the bare minimum. You have a job as an employer to make sure your staff knows that it's going to be a safe environment, and you're not just taking maybe the baseline steps, but you're going to taking it as far as you can and within reason, without having an impact on, you don't want to be having an impact on the PPE supply on the healthcare system, but within reason, what you can do to create the space in the office that people need, create the safe sites, making sure they have enough of the materials they need so that they feel safe, they have confidence, and they can slowly get back to work. Supply chain is also, a huge issue that should start to relieve now, but the impacts of the Quebec closure were significant on the Ottawa construction market. A great deal of our supply chain, not just the labor market, did come from Quebec. So, those are impacts that, it'll take a figure out a large project really on those things. Those are sort of the main challenges we're sort of dealing with these days.
Okay. And Fred, let's bring you into the conversation. We're happy to have you, Fred, because you bring in a different type of company with a different focus. So tell us about Maple Leaf Custom Homes, and then get into a little bit over the impact on Maple Leaf Homes over the past 8 weeks or so.
Yeah, thanks, for sure. So, yeah, unlike these two guys managing way bigger operations than we are, we're a small boutique design build firm with an in-house architect. It's about it's over 18 years old as of April. We build about 8 to 10 custom homes a year, and we've just started to get into the development, multi-unit development on our, over the last couple of years. We have about 10 to 12 employees, depending on the time of year. And I think the impact of COVID, I don't think, and I think I echo what Neil said, that our first concern was really and we have a personal relationship, I think, with every employee, because it's just a small outfit, but, the guys and girls that would have issues on site with number of people or, proper hand sanitation, we listened closely to what their concerns were and adopted measures to help them feel safer at work. So that was the first thing that we did. We did have one voluntary layoff of just a person. I'm sure these guys are feeling the same thing. People that just had no caretakers at home for their children had to step down because they just couldn't do both. And I think similar to these guys, we had several projects on the go. So a lot of the residential projects that were already started prior to April 4th, when Premier Ford announced no more new permits, we were still moving forward although a little slower because of the fact that we were trying to minimize interactions on site and obviously not put people in positions where they felt unsafe. And thankfully now they're opening up, I think, the permits again today, or as of today. So things look like they're going to be just okay. But that's really the view from the custom home side of things.
Okay, Brent, let's come back to you and dig into things from an operational perspective a little bit. So if we were to visit a home building site today, whether it's a condo or whether it's a single family home, would anything look different in terms of the operations, health and safety standards, even the pace of building?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely different now than it was a couple of months ago, and it's driven by safety first as far as site and the safety for employees and trade partners. You have things like instead of going to a site office to check in, you've got the phone in to confirm that you're coming onto site, what houses you're working on. You'll see the hand wash stations consistently along the street, usually in a garage that's in a house that's under construction, but it's well identified as far as the hand wash stations. You have the limitations as far as how many people can be in a home at one time, we call them door knockers on the door, as far as is there somebody in the house or is it empty? You see items such as, our health and safety reps, we've increased the number to be able to patrol and also to make sure that the physical separation is maintained. So a number of items that we are seeing, it is slowing down construction, and that's recognized, but it's the right thing to do at this point in time. And it's also, you're seeing people adapt to the new norm. So understanding as far as physical limitations and how close you can be, how many people in the house, those type of things. And what we're experiencing is primarily in the finishing of the homes, where you get to flooring, trim, drywall. Those are definitely items that, you can only be doing one thing at a house at a time, whereas before you might have had a few trades in the house working on different floors. So that's definitely slowing things down, but it's also creating the opportunities for people to work different hours as well. So whether it's evenings or weekends where you can be in a house by yourself and do those because it suits you or suits your family, it also opens up those opportunities as well.
And Neil, you probably are a little bit like Minto in terms of the type of health and safety standards a large company needs to embrace. Has Claridge adapted, and if so, what impact is it having on the pace of building?
Yeah, so no, definitely have adapted. I mean, try and go over and above what the Ministry of Labor has, put out. It's going to from somebody. That's going to have an impact. You're going to have limited people in an area. That's going to have an impact, and that's part of it. I think people understand that, and again, it's just working to a new normal right now. And at some point, will those things change further? Possibly, but for now, it's you're trying to keep your engine going. It's a little more inefficient, and there's some additional costs, and that's part of the business. So that's part of how companies like ours are able to get through these times and keep things moving forward. Because the number one thing we still hear is, hey, is my house gonna be ready next month? Like I don't have an option. Like there's been one thing I could say is there's been not one case of somebody not closing on a house in this situation. People need the house. I mean, the reality is in January and February, we were on the verge of a serious housing crisis in this city. Housing was going nuts. We had January and February, which are not traditionally house selling months. They're not big ones. Claridge had their two best months in the history of Claridge in, nearly 40 years. The demand for housing was very strong in Ottawa, and it continues to be. And to be honest, people are scared if they are not available to get into their house today. They're a little frightened. What is the impact? Maybe I have to go live with my elderly parents, which we don't want to expose them to the kids coming in and out of the house, or whatever, us having, if I have to go to work or whatever it is. So people need their houses still, and so we have to find our best way and do our best to try and deliver them as timely as possible at this stage without making safety sacrifices, because again, as I said earlier, we can't get things done if we don't have the confidence of our employees or our customers that we are trying to be safe and doing things the right way. Then your efficiency really goes out the window.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Neil. Some really interesting points there. Fred, I'm going to come to you next, and maybe you can help us cast our vision to the future a little bit and turn to a sales. So, of course, the sales cycle for custom home building would be likely very different from Minto or Claridge. Give me a sense about how a custom home builder such as Maple Leaf is affected by this, or what are you anticipating over the next several months to come from a sales perspective?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think that's the toughest one to answer out of all of them so far. So the reality is we're building today homes that were sold over a year ago. And I think, we haven't missed a closing. As Neil said, we're pushing hard. We've closed several during the crisis so far and a few more coming. So, but I'm thinking, project outwards, we are seeing a slowdown in number of phone calls or, requests for designs, and then that turn into constructions, but it's not all that slow. So I'm thinking Ottawa is a fairly insulated market compared to other markets in terms of housing. And we were on fire prior to this thing coming. Because I know personally, having friends just trying to buy homes in the townhome market that were struggling and things were selling for over asking. So Neil's right on in terms of how crazy it was prior. So we've seen a little bit of a taper off there. I think, we're going to come out of this just fine. I think there was just so much demand that things are going to continue to go, but I really don't know. I guess this is what scares me about the market a little bit, is that it's the restaurant manager married to like hotel person worker or couple that's trying to buy their first townhome. I think we're going to see, like, I'm not going to see it in my market because I think these people are quote unquote recession proof, but it's the starter home people that I think are going to be affected because they're the ones that are wearing the brunt of, I think, these retail and restaurant shutdowns. So yeah, I guess my answer is it's hard to say. 18 to 24 months is going to tell the real story. But I feel confident that Ottawa's got a good situation considering other markets in the country.
Okay. Well, thanks, Fred. Brent, I want to come back to you at this point. I know Fred, of course, is dealing in many of the cases with large custom homes. Minto does a variety of things. You probably touch on some custom, but probably better known for providing that, what I would say, regular supply of homes that we see across the city. So I'd love to get your input into what you think then from a sales perspective the next many months will bring.
Well, we think it'll be interesting, but I think a few things that have been mentioned that are positive are sales continue to happen in Ottawa even during this pandemic, and more importantly, closings are still happening as well. An indicator of closings not happening would be a lot of alarms right now, but we are not seeing that, excuse me, in Ottawa at all. So from a sales perspective, it continues to be strong. We are still seeing demand, and normally in the spring market, this is when the sales are quite active. Of course, with the warmer weather now, some people are anxious to get outside of their houses. But looking forward, we think that the indicators are still there. And as Neil mentioned, in a housing crisis, that the supply is still constrained in Ottawa. The inventory levels on resale homes continue to be very low. You are still hearing about multiple bids on some resale properties and builders who are constrained in supply. So therefore, the releases are happening fewer and farther between. So the all of the indicators, I think, are that the housing market should remain strong in Ottawa. Yes, we have the federal government. We have a lot of municipal, a lot of health and education as well, which helps. But as Fred mentioned, there are the risk above the tourism industry that is going to suffer this year, for sure. The restaurants and the hotels. So, that buyer demographic is probably going to take a step back. But hopefully, again, when you're selling for closings out into 2021, it still provides the opportunity to buy a house with a closing date a little further out, an opportunity to save or to close at a later date.
So, gentlemen, that's all the time we have today. Thanks very much for providing such a great insight into a variety of the home sector here. Once again, thank you to Brent from Minto, Fred from Maple Leaf, and Neil from Claridge. Please continue watching Ottawa Business Journal for more continuing coverage of COVID-19. You can check us out at www.obj.ca or watch some of these videos on YouTube and, in fact, now on audio podcast on platforms like Spotify. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining me. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Michael.
Michael.